Hey everybody, Midnight Riders. Let's do a little science experiment. So here we have a scale. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at a few things. The topic of today is equality. So let's say that this side is men and this side is women. So let's look at something just I don't know. Let's look at the average size. Okay, so we could say that men. Let's say men are. Let's say men are 4 quarters, and women are 3. Do y'all see how this side is still weighing more? The only way to make them equal is to either take one away from the men's side or add it to the woman's side. See that? I'm trying to think here of what all we could even weigh. Let's measure average strength, right? Physical strength. So here again, we're equal. Let's say that men have 4 quarters. Women are not as physically strong as men, so let's just say that they have 3. See how the scale still weighs for men? It's not an equal balance. Let's measure intelligence. Men have it all. All right, listen. Here's the thing. Today's topic is about equality, and the simple fact is that men and women are biologically different, right? We have different strengths. We have different intelligence levels, right? Men have higher IQ. Women have higher EQ. This is what separates men and women. Everybody always says that women are just as smart as men. Well, they may be in certain areas, but they're not in other areas. And when you look at scientific evidence of this, it's pretty conclusive. Men's brains actually function completely different than women's brains. And I know there's a lot of people out there that say that women are just as capable at doing this. And, nowadays we've got, what do we got? We got women who are in Army Ranger units. We got women who have made it through BUDS for the Navy SEALs. We got women, I think there's even a woman now who has made it onto Army Special Forces. We got women who are in, I think I just saw now where a woman has graduated Army Sniper School. That's really not that big of a deal to me, but I'm much more concerned about SEALs and Rangers and Green Berets. Here's the thing: men and women are biologically different. This is by design. Okay, this is literally, women have higher EQs. This is what prevents them from eating their babies. And everybody thinks that this is a joke, but it's actually true, right? Women are emotional creatures, men are men are physical. And this is what separates us on a biologic level. Everyone thinks, I keep saying it, that equality is the most dangerous word in the English language, or in any language, whatever the word is. Equality, or equal, is an exceptionally dangerous word. We live in a society now where everybody thinks that they should be able to do everything that the other person can do, or everything that the other gender can do. We've got tranny men who are now pretending like they can become pregnant. I mean, when does the madness stop? When do we actually start getting back to our old traditional roles where women were women and men were men? And, our entire society wasn't pandering to 6% of the LGBTQ community. When do we get back to that norm? When do we stop being afraid of saying that people are not equal? Um, I've always kind of questioned this. I don't really know why anybody would want to be equal. I personally want to be unique. I want to have my own individual qualities, and I don't want to be at the same level as anybody else. Right? When we all talk about equality, one of the biggest reasons that this is so dangerous is because it takes away natural competition, right? And this is by design. Trust me. This is a system created by a bunch of beta males who don't want to compete. They don't want the competition, so they don't like the idea that some men are more masculine or that some women are more feminine, because they don't like to compete. But I would raise the question that it really is dangerous for everyone to think that they're equal. Now, I was watching a podcast the other day, or I guess I don't even remember where it was at, but it was with Dr. Jordan Peterson, and he was talking to a panel. I believe he was in England, and there was some kind of, I don't know what she was, some feminist. I don't know who this woman was, but she was sitting there trying to argue that the reason that men and women still aren't equal is because of lack of opportunity. And Dr. Peterson pointed out that in all of the countries, specifically in Scandinavia, who have made, uber, extreme laws that require equality, in all of those countries, to include America, where you think that, like let's take like husbands who become mannies, right? Or these, these house dads, right? These dads that they let their wives go out and work and then they stay home and raise the kids and stuff, right? But in all of these societies that have these extreme laws, the women are actually reverting back to some of like the traditional roles. They don't want to be in the STEM fields, especially, right? And it's very interesting to see how biology is still it's still the primary factor out there. Psychology does not override biology. I keep saying this, and I keep telling people this, that anyone who thinks that psychology overrides biology does not know the science. And I mean, look, I like Dr. Peterson a lot. I watch a lot of his stuff. I mean, there's some things that I disagree with him on, but he's obviously world renowned for his knowledge. And I don't know all the psychological terms like he does, and I don't really care to know all that stuff. But I'll tell you, it is very, very dangerous to live in societies that tries to manufacture ways, psychological conditions that are trying to override biology, right? We see this with transgender people, right? Just because they think that they're not the gender that they are doesn't mean that they're biologically not the gender that they are, right? So this is what I mean when I say psychology does not override biology. Biology is a hard science, whereas psychology is largely based on theory, right? It's not a hard science, it's a soft science. And I'm sure there's some psychologists out there who might disagree with this, but psychology is kind of a 50-50 thing. And really, when you look at psychologists around the world, you can always tell what their main philosophy is, political beliefs, religious beliefs, based on what type of psychological theory they practice, right? So obviously the more liberal psychologists out there, they're not really looking for the root cause of anything. Really, they're looking more for an excuse to bad behavior. And this is why I don't really, this is why I actually studied sociology, because I don't really care for psychology at all. But, my point remains the same, is that biology is really the hard science. And I talk about a lot of biological things all the time, right? Like I talk about how humans are biologically designed to be polygynous. Nowadays we live in a society where women don't believe that, right? They've been accustomed to this equality thing, so they think they can do anything a man can do, and when a man tries to tell a woman differently, she gets all kinds of offended, and she gets butthurt, and all of a sudden, I'm a chauvinist and a toxic masculinity and all this kind of crap. And that's really what's going on, is that we've lived in this equality society for so long that nobody wants to recognize the facts. Nobody wants to recognize who they really are. Nobody wants to recognize what they're really capable of. And the ones that crack me up the most are like these women who want to be in special forces, and these women who want to be cops and stuff like that. And I just can't help but feel sorry for them, because it is a mental condition in my mind. It's almost a mental illness, right? And it's because society has built up this word equality that people have actually started to believe it. And I've talked to a lot of women about this. I mean, I ask them, let's take a war zone, for example. Now, I know plenty of guys, that they had female medics or something like this that used to go on patrol with them, and they'll swear up and down that those women are just as capable as any man out there, but they're not. Okay, just on physicality alone, they are not. Plus the fact that our brains are hardwired differently. Okay, I mean, take me. I'm 6'2", I'm right at about 240, 250 pounds. Okay, let's say if I'm in a combat zone and I get shot and I'm wounded and I'm on the ground, there is no way, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that a little 5'2", 110-pound female is going to be able to drag me out of that hot zone. It's just not going to happen. And I can tell you from experience that even as a man my size, where I've had other men who were even smaller than me, right? I've had other male soldiers who were wounded that I've had to try to drag out of an area, and it was not that damn easy. Okay, it was very, very difficult. So I just, same thing with cops. I mean, you see it all the time where these female cops will get into these fights. And it's not to sound like a badass, man. I'm not trying to sound like I'm hardcore. But I know that if I come up against a cop, let's say she's a 5'2", 5'4", maybe 110, 120-pound female cop. Not that I would ever do this, but let's just say that I lose my temper and I get pissed off. Here again, I'm 6'2", 250. I've had martial arts training my entire life. I've been in multiple combat situations in the military, and I was in law enforcement myself. Let's say that I get pissed off at this 5'2" or 5'4" female cop, and she's alone, right? She's out on patrol by herself. And let's say that I get pissed off and I decide to go ahead and take her down. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that she is going to be able to defend herself against me. Okay? Here again, I'd be more than happy to take on any full-size male cop. And I know plenty of guys who have the same capabilities. But that's my point. Okay? The point is that those women shouldn't be in those positions to begin with. And real men should be brave enough to stand up and say, nah, fuck that. We don't want those girls to get hurt like this. We don't want these women, right? These women are nurturers. We are the protectors. But we should be able to sit down and say, hey, stop the fucking madness, stop bullshit, and stop pretending like you're equal, because you're not. And unfortunately, we live in this society that rewards this mentality, and all it's really doing is creating a false narrative for people to think that they're, more capable than they really are. Now, I'm not saying that a woman can't do just fine being a cop. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that she should never be alone, right? She should always have a male to back her up. Or she should be doing administrative work. She shouldn't be out on the streets. I mean, I can't remember. I just saw a video not too long ago where a female cop got attacked by some thug. And there was nothing she could do about it. This dude beat her ass. I mean, he beat her down, and I can't remember. I want to say it was in New York or someplace like this. But basically this chick was out on patrol by herself. And, here again, man, she was like a 5'4", 120-pound female. Little blonde girl, man. Actually kind of cute, too. But she came up against this gangbanger, this thug. And this dude fucked her up. Now, luckily, there was a couple of other people that were watching the situation. These were just regular civilians. And they came to her rescue as two men, who actually came and subdued this thug so that this chick could get up off the ground and call for backup. I'm going to say it like this, man. I mean, I was fortunate. I was never in any Army units that ever had any women in them until my last 3 years when I reclassed to become an engineering officer. But during my enlisted years, I was never... I was fortunate because I was never in a unit that had females. I don't know that I would have been able to handle that. First of all, this is the God's honest truth. I wouldn't have been comfortable having them around me. Everybody always says, oh, that's the wrong attitude. Well, no, man. I mean, I want to protect women. I don't want to be fighting alongside of them. I don't want to see them being injured, and I don't want to see them being captured or being blown up by IEDs or anything. I want them to be able to carry life on. I don't want them to be the ones out there trying to pretend like they're hardcore. To me, that is not a woman's role, and I'll tell you, we are doing ourselves a major disservice by straying so far away from the traditional roles that made us a great society to begin with. Everybody seems to think that this new age, gender neutral kind of crap is a good thing, but it's not. It is ruining our society. And I'm not just talking about the word equality as far as genders go. I mean, the word equality has truly messed up so many things. It's messed up race. It's messed up, and I'll give you an example. Here again, going back to my scale thing that I was doing just a few minutes ago, right? There are differences between every race. There's differences between every gender. There's differences between, again, this is biology, right? It's not a bad thing. Everybody has their own unique individual characteristics, and that's what actually makes them special. Anytime you have to pretend that two people are the same, you're going to have to take something away from one or add to the other in order to balance out that pendulum. Okay? Nobody is created exactly equal. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat everybody with fairness, right? That doesn't mean that you shouldn't treat everybody with dignity and respect. But this idea that everybody is 100% equal is absolute horseshit. And the more that people try to follow this narrative, the more damage it's going to cause. I try to use some common sense with every podcast that I do. And believe me, when I'm out here preaching this stuff to people, it's not like I'm out here trying to offend anyone or trying to ruffle any feathers. I mean, I'm not trying to start a revolution out here. I just want people to start using some common sense. There is a reason why human females are created the way that they are. And there's a reason, a biological reason, why human males are created the way that they are. When you look at other species, and I've talked so much about this too, when you look at other species let's take a black widow spider, for example, where the female spider is larger, right, more powerful, and so they have multiple males that one female spider will mate with, and then they kill the males and eat them after they're done with them, right? Mosquitoes are kind of the same way. I mean, there's a reason for that. For some reason, the way that they evolved, biology, right, evolutionary biology, dictated who was going to be the stronger species or the stronger gender in that species. And humans are the same way. There is a reason why we have evolved the way that we have. trying to interrupt that evolution and trying to counter or contradict that evolutionary process is going to cause irreversible harm, right? In fact, I was talking to a girl the other day, and the conversation was funny because I asked her, I said, what do you think is going to happen to humans in 1,000 years? And she said, well, I think humans are going to be extinct. And I asked her, I said, well, why would you think that? We've existed for at least, I don't care how you look at it, we've existed for at least, a couple 100,000 years. Why would you think that humans are going to go extinct in the next 1,000 years? And her answer was because men are trying to dominate the whole species too much. And it made me laugh. I said, okay, so in about the last 100 years really is about when, women's rights have came about, right? The 18th Amendment and all this kind of shit. Even countries, like Scandinavia, they were the first countries in the world to kind of go along with, equality and women's rights. And that was about 120 years ago. So that, this whole idea of equality is a new idea in terms of the evolutionary curve that humans have existed in, right? You're talking 100 years out of several 100,000 years. And so I said, so in other words, toxic masculinity existed for that entire time period up until about 100 years ago. And now all of a sudden you think men are being too masculine? I said, man, you've lost your motherfucking mind. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. In fact, if humans go extinct, it's going to be for the exact opposite reason. It's going to be because men have forgotten how to be real men because everyone thinks that men and women should be equal. And of course, that was the last bit of the conversation that she was willing to have. This is a dangerous thing. This is a dangerous thing. We are changing human evolution to match. Here again, we're trying to allow psychology to override biology, and it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. I'm telling everybody out there now that if you want to protect the human race and if you want to continue the human race, then we have to get back to the old-fashioned traditional roles that made the human race so powerful to begin with. I challenge everybody. Think about this logically. If you have to have a man-made law saying that two people are equal, then that should be pretty obvious that they are not equal at all. Think about that. I don't know of anybody else who has ever said this. Even Dr. Peterson, I don't think, has ever said this. If you have to have a man-made law claiming that everyone is equal, that everyone is on the same pendulum, then that should be pretty good evidence that nobody is equal at all. Here's the thing. Nature determines equality. It determines equality through things like physical strength, physical size, IQ levels, right? Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about the facts, right? I've said it before on other podcasts that let's take intelligence, for example. That is a genetic characteristic, right? And it varies. It's different from race to race. I've heard people tell me, oh man, you must be some kind of white supremacist. You think you're smarter than black people, right? Well, no, here's the thing. It's a proven fact that the average Caucasian white European has a higher IQ than the average sub-Saharan black person. If I was a white supremacist, I'd say that white people are the smartest people on the planet. But that's not the fact. The fact is that Northeast Asians have higher IQs than white Caucasians. And guess what? Hasidic Jews have the highest IQs in the world, on average. Okay, this doesn't mean that there's not some exceptions to the rule. This doesn't mean that there's not people out there like Ben Carson, right? Who's undoubtedly one of the smartest human beings on this planet. But when we're talking about biology and when we're talking about genetics, psychology does not override biology. You can try to make somebody pretend, or you can pretend to make somebody believe that they're the smartest person in the world, but unfortunately, sometimes that is not the truth. It's not a fact. Okay, same thing with women. You can try to make them believe, you can pretend to that they are equal to men, but the fact is not true. The fact is that women have certain characteristics that they're better at, and men have certain characteristics that they're better at. Now, I don't understand why everybody would even want to be equal. We should want, and here again, this is part of a narrative. This is actually part of a government, beta male, type of narrative that wants to put people on the same playing field, specifically because they don't like competition, and that's kind of weak. It's no different than the whole world believing in this whole corona thing. People have got to be able to use their minds enough to actually research stuff and stop following the narrative of what a few other people are telling you to believe, and you've actually got to start looking for some facts. The fact is pretty simple. People are not equal. Men and women are not equal. You should not want to be equal. So, with saying this, I keep telling everybody that I've got some good things coming up, and I do. I've got some pretty cool interviews, and I'm also working on a couple of self-care products that hopefully I'll have out and marketed here pretty soon. If everybody notices, I'm starting to get a few more subscribers. I'm starting to get a few more rumbles, and I'm really excited about that. I want to keep them coming. Hopefully by next year, if everything goes as planned, then maybe I'll be able to start talking to some people like Joe Rogan or something. Just keep watching and keep subscribing. Don't forget to do those patriotic things that I know you're all capable of doing, right? I mean, things here again. I'm not sponsored by any of these people, but check out Patrol Base. Let's start using different social media platforms if we have to use them at all. And Patrol Base is a great one. Let's start supporting companies like MyPillow, right? That dude is a true patriot. Mike Lindell, he's a true patriot, and maybe if there's enough people out there that start listening to this kind of common sense stuff, maybe we might actually have a chance of saving this damn country. So, till next time, take care.